The most important thing to remember when it comes to disease and insect control is that plants that are strong and healthy are most resistant to disease and pests. It is always better to avoid these problems rather than trying to solve them after the infestation has set in. There are some things you can do to go on the defense against disease and insects. The first is spacing plants correctly. If you live in a dry place, then you'll have the luxury of being able to space your plants a little tighter. If you live in a really humid place, you might need to give your plants a little more breathing room, just because that humidity can perpetuate disease in densely packed plants. This will always also be the case in places that get a lot of rainfall. Rotating your crops every year will also help fight disease that might start in certain places in your garden. Some crops are more susceptible to certain problems, and so rotating your crops can help avoid some disease problems. Another thing you can do is choose disease resistant varieties. If you know you have a certain problem in your area, consider choosing varieties that may have been bred for that particular need, such as heat or a small space, etc. Tomatoes, especially, will have all kinds of variants, and you can really choose varieties that are for your specific needs. Hybrids are amazing. We are becoming more and more sophisticated in the plants that are being bred, and most of the varieties today are much stronger, give higher yields, and better flavors than their original ancestors. We really do live in a wonderful time to be a home gardener with so much abundance at our fingertips. Sometimes treating for insects can be the only way to save your crops. I know a lot of you face a lot of insect problems and you can lose everything from it. Malathion and Sevin are the two main chemicals that are used for treating insects, and they're very effective. BT is another product that is extremely effective, and it's entirely organic. It's a type of bacteria, and so you'll want to make sure that you are getting it fresh and that you store it in a cool place. There's really not time here to cover all the insecticides and their pros and cons, organic or otherwise. So, really do a little research if you're facing an extreme insect problem, and you'll be able to choose what is good for you and for that situation that you're dealing with. Some of the best advice I've heard or read is also sometimes keep in mind that sometimes it's okay if you have some of these pests on your plants. You might see aphids or squash beetles, but if they're not doing much harm to your produce, which is often the case, you might just ignore them in your small garden. Also, on such a small scale for us home gardeners, don't underestimate that you can sometimes largely eradicate a problem just by taking a spray bottle or gloved fingers and squishing all the bad bugs you see. I know that some of you that are strictly organic gardeners are probably just bothered that I even mentioned the chemicals. I wanted to mention them just so that for those that are interested, you can know they can be used. But I am a believer that you'll want to try and stick to organic methods and really try to avoid using insecticides if you can, especially on food. Let me just talk about beneficial insects. So, a really important way, and probably the best way to combat pests, is with beneficial insects. So, all bugs are not bad. In fact, a lot of insects are vital to keeping your garden thriving and free of problems. Pollinators, for example, are essential. Without them, you wouldn't be able to get food or flowers. So, when using sprays, be cautious, even organic sprays, because what you can do is kill all the insects in your yard and then you'll just perpetuate your problem. So, attracting good bugs and fending off bad bugs is the best system for keeping predatory insects at bay. There are many types of insects, and it would be impossible for me to point out all the insects that are pests that will come to your yard. But here are a few of the most common pests that you may come in contact with. We have aphids, spotted cucumber beetles, grasshoppers, squash bugs, flea beetle, cutworm, tomato worm, snails. Um, Ants, I didn't mention here, they're really kind of neither here nor there, but when you see them, they're usually a manifestation of other problems, such as rot or aphids. So keep an eye out for ants. Hopefully, this can just give you a place to start. But like I said, your region is going to have some kind of pests as well. So kind of look out for what's coming into your yard. Some common critters that are beneficial that will eat these pests and keep the population of negative insects out are also included here are pollinators. So we've got ladybugs, bees, lacewings, praying mantis, frogs, lizards, butterflies. Again, there are more than these, but that can give you a good place to start. One little tip is that at specialty garden stores, you can actually buy beneficial insects. If you've got a bad aphid problem, let me just say that lacewings are actually a little bit more effective than ladybugs. So just keep that in mind. Now, talking about diseases. Some diseases occur due to water conditions. A very common one is the one you'll see in this picture, which is blossom end rot, which happens in tomatoes. You'll get a brown scab on the bottom of your tomatoes, and this occurs from irregular watering. Most often, when tomatoes are being hit by a sprinkler that waters the lawn, or frequent rainfall can cause this. Another problem you'll get from incorrect watering is fungus diseases. Powdery and downy mildew are a few really common fungal diseases that will occur from sprinkling the leaves rather than watering underneath. So if you live in a place that gets a lot of rainfall and your plants are struggling with fungal diseases, you might put up a translucent tarp or even build a permanent structure with a translucent roof that lets light in but keeps water off your plants. That's usually what gardeners do that live in really wet places. So keep that in mind as an option if you're having a lot of problems. Soil nutrient deficiencies can cause a lot of diseases in plants. The most common will be a nitrogen deficiency in the soil, which will cause plants to have a yellow green color and they'll kind of lack vitality. You'll know your plants are well nourished and are getting everything they need from the soil when they're dark green. This is an indication especially that they have enough nitrogen, but all of the plant elements. Iron deficiency in the soil will cause a disease called chlorosis, which is manifest by yellow leaves with dark green veins, which you can see here in this picture. If you see this, you can know that you need to treat the soil with iron. It will manifest especially in berries. So there are more diseases than I can even know about or address here. Some that may just be specific to your area or to your soil. The greatest advice I can give you is that when you spot something going wrong, either a disease or something dying, try and evaluate the fundamentals to see what may be going wrong. So that's going to be with soil, water, sun, or potential insects in your area. Look at those through 4 things. Use your knowledge of those things to diagnose what is going wrong and then solve the problem. Are you watering correctly for that crop? Did you plant something in shade that should be in sun, or did you plant something in sun that should be in shade? Are there nutrient deficiencies in your soil? Your plants are going to show you if you've got a problem. So pay attention to that. Always, also another little tip is always throw away diseased foliage or fruit rather than composting it, because you can actually put disease into your compost and then spread it around your garden, which you do not want to do. So make sure that you're throwing away any foliage that's diseased.